You want to fight crime? Let's get dangerous.
And maybe it is, and maybe it isn't. Welcome to another episode of From the Desk of Small Press Publisher. I'm your host, Joe D. McPhee here, and it is another Saturday night here. And well, since we didn't do it last week, since we're now in 2026 here, we're making more changes to the show here. And if everything goes okay here, we may do more shows like this in the near future. So hopefully we'll get people slowly coming in here shortly. So let's go ahead and get the business end of stuff out the way here, such as telling everybody once again that Stupid O'Clock happens 1 hour into our show here at 11 p.m. Eastern. Then after that, you got Last Man Standing at 1 a.m. Then you get a little bit of a respite until Monday morning when you have Nicholas Talkert for Nevermind the Furthermore on Monday. And then let's not forget about Comic Book Spectrum this upcoming Thursday. As promised, we will be talking about Wait Till Your Father Gets Home, some DCKO stuff, and a couple of other things that comes up as we go along with this week here. Remember, this is a show about anything and everything geek culture now. So there is nothing off the table here. So on that note, it looks like, we got people about to get ready to flow in here. So let's not wait too much longer, because why? We got books to show you. We got books to show you, and then we got a better update for you on the long run here. So without further ado, it is time for new comic book pickups for the week here. So what came in the mail this week here? Let's start out with some old school Jack Kirby goodness with New Gods number 8. You got New Gods number 8, and we got people coming in here. Welcome on in, Mr. Minton. How are you doing this evening? Hopefully everything is going well for you here. So we got that. IKEA. Ooh, IKEA. Okay. All right. And then we got Mr. Rat Stew. What's going on? What's going on here? We got Charisma One. Welcome on in. Yeah, sorry, my sister stole my phone. Okay, not a problem here. Not a problem here, John. So, first book that we got, like I said, old school Jack Kirby goodness in New Gods number 8. Then we're going to follow up with what people call a major key, and that is Flash 250. And the reason why Flash 250 is considered a major key, because this is the first appearance of the Golden Glider, which is right here. So first appearance of Golden Glider. And then after that, we got the modern version of Gotham Sirens number 1. So this is like my second or third copy of this here. So this is, not one of those things to be like overly jumping up and down for here. And then we got another copy of Uncanny X-Men 534.1. And then we're going to follow that up with a Miles Morales 42. And then another copy of issue number 1 of volume 3 of the Hulk run. And I still feel that this Hulk run is very underrated, mainly because of 2 reasons. One, it really dealt with the aftermath of, what was happening to Jennifer after the death of Bruce. And then it got kind of murky towards the end when she was dealing with the leader itself here. So it was kind of good in that aspect here. And then we got some issues of New Mutants Forever. So we got issue number 2, issue number 3, and issue number 5. And I believe that completes the New Mutants Forever series for my collection here. And then we got some more New Mutants issues here. Does not complete my run here. Well, thank you so much here. I appreciate that. So this also goes into my collection here. More issues to help me complete my run of New Mutants. We got issue number 52, 61, 70, 76, and 80. So those go into my New Mutants run. And then with Angela, Queen of Hell, I believe I only missing 1 issue, and that's issue number 4. But we have issue number 5, 6, and 7. So we're getting close to finishing off that series. And then I believe this is Flash number 1 from like volume 4 or 5. I believe it's volume 4. So that's what we got right here. Thank you so much for the like here, Rat Stew. Thank you so much here. I appreciate it here. Then we got JLA number 5. And then I was trying to get to the point where I could complete the Empress run. So I got another copy of Empress number 2 and Empress 4. And I didn't realize I had most of it already, but I got the full complete run of Last Right storyline for Daredevil. So Last Right's full storyline for Daredevil, starting with issue 297, 298, 299, and 300. So we got those in the collection as of right now. And then if you remember the Amalgam series, when we had Marvel versus DC, we got Challengers of the Fantastic number 1, the one shot here. And then we got issue number 0 from volume 1 of Razor. And then after that, we got Uncanny Avengers number 1. I believe this is my second copy of this, the Rick Remender Uncanny Avengers run. And then it has like the actual print on the back, the Scotty Young print on the back here. And then another copy of Magnificent Miss Marvel number 1. And then a newsstand copy of the Red Sonja movie adaptation. So this is issue number 2 of the Red Sonja movie adaptation right here. And then I got most of the run of the DC printed books for Radio Shack. If you remember Radio Shack back in the day, they had a line of comics that had their own characters and some DC characters up in it. So I have this copy of WizKids called The Computer Trap. And then we have Tandy Computer's WizKids in action again. And then we have a side story called Fit to Win in this one. And then this one is Tandy Computer's WizKids, News by Computers Foil Kidnappers. And then we have this one right here where you have Alex and Shauna starring in The Answer to a Riddle. And then we have one of the few Superman comics issues here by Radio Shack that features the Whiz Kids as a whole here. And I believe this is one of 3 different Superman ones, because there's a solo Superman series that also had Supergirl up in it. There's another Superman that has Wonder Woman up in it, and then there was another solo Superman comic that was done by Radio Shack here. So those are kind of good pickups. All right, not a problem here, Mr. Ratstew. Thank you for dropping by. And then we got 2 issues of Civil War here to complete my Civil War 2 run here. So we got Civil War number 4, Civil War 2 number 4, and Civil War 2 number 6. We're almost at the tail end of the stack here, where we got Reggie and Me number 32, an older issue here. This one is from 1968, Reggie and Me. And then we got the foil version of Catwoman number 9 from the current run. And then we got an issue of the first volume of Challengers of the Unknown. This is issue number 84. And then we got Batgirl number 1. I forgot which series this is, but I know that that's Cassandra Cain as Batgirl. And then we got another copy of Catwoman Defiant. And one of my, I want to say it's not even a favorite, but I have to have it because it is one of the few Red Kryptonite stories that's in existence here. So this is Superman 165, and this has the Red Kryptonite issue where they're talking about. It has the one Red Kryptonite story that I really wanted to really take a look at here. And the last thing that's came in the mail, which is an actual art book. It is called Twin Visions, The Magical Art of Boris Vallejo and Julie Bell. So this is some good stuff and good reading on top of that here. So we got great books that came in this week here. And I hope that people have some great pickups out there. If you want, you could drop them in the comments if you want. We could talk about it a little bit later. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead. We're going to go ahead and go into our second part here, which is dealing with the updates. And this is one of the changes we have here. So just give me 1 second. One of the changes that we have for the show is when we talk about updates, we got to really start talking about some actual data here, such as things from the collection here. So as of right now, I currently have issues 1 through 108 without missing an issue. I'm currently I'm missing 50 issues from the whole entire run up to this point here, from with issues missing above 108. I do have others above 108, but I'm still missing other issues in between that here. For those who are interested about my Spider-Woman collection here, I am missing 13 issues from volume 3. That is the non-Jessica Drew volume here. I forgot which Parker it was that was Spider-Woman in volume 3. I am missing issue 4 and 6 from issue number 5, and missing issues 19 to 21 from volume 7, and missing only issues 5 and 7 from the last volume of here. And then for those who are really curious about why, there's nothing really new up under the sun for me for Uncanny X-Men, pretty much I have all of the Uncanny X-Men issues starting from issue number 1 from 1963 through the end of volume 2, minus the annuals here. However, I am only missing issue 24, and there's a reason why there's an asterisk there, because I just haven't found it in storage here, but I truly believe I have all of volume 3. I am missing issues 13 to 17 from volume 4. 9 issues from volume 5, and an unknown amount from the current volume of issue number 6, because I just added that back to my pull list. So I'm not certain how many issues that I'm missing from the most current volume of Uncanny X-Men, which brings us to the Wonder Woman. I am not missing any issues as of right now from volume 1, issue number 161. So we go all the way back, I want to say, to maybe the late 1950s, 161, to the current issue here. I am missing only a total of 113 issues from volume 1, which is below issue 161. Now, these totals are not 100% accurate because of the simple fact that I got more books on the way here that is below 161. So that total will get updated here probably next week. And then for the regular X-Men series from the 1991 series, I have issue number 1 from 1991 all the way through the end of volume 3. Not including all the annuals. I only missing issue number 6 from volume 4, and I'm missing 6 issues from volume 4 and 26 issues from volume 5. So that brings us up to date as far as the collection is concerned here. Now, as far as the production side here, I was able to finish and letter the 8-page chapter for the anthology series of Legends of the Giantess Slayer. I have now currently started on working on a work in progress piece, which I'm going to announce a little bit later, within like the next week or so, just to get feelers here. And the reason I'm saying just to get feelers here, because of the main fact that the characters that I'm working with right now are in public domain. So I don't have to be as careful with using them, but I want to see how people would like the concept. So I'm going to put up some, if I can say, work in progress images and story, just to see how people like it. And then I started with some of the Bristol boards already for Amazonian number 8. So we're getting there. We're getting everything ready for C2E2 and everything here. So on that note, that brings us to the main topic of the evening here. I was hoping that more people would show up here and be with us today, but I guess not. I guess people don't want me to get canceled here. But nevertheless, I have taken at least 10 questions that people have asked me at comic book shows, through correspondence via email, through different interviews and stuff. And I brought them here tonight here. And I must say this, and this is the disclaimer. The answers to these questions are not meant to offend anybody, not to poke fun at any type of person or anything to that magnitude here. It is the honest opinion and honest answer that I can give to you about why I feel the way that I feel about these questions, and a somewhat answer to what was being asked here. Some of these things I did not answer on the record nor in public forum in great detail. However, I will do that tonight here. So that's the reason why I said that these questions may get me quote unquote canceled, depending on how you feel about said topics that were brought to my attention here. So without further ado here, the first question of the evening that was brought to my attention here is that why don't you promote yourself as a Black creator or your books as Black comics? Well, simple answer is like, why do I need to do so? The longer answer for that is, take a look at me. I don't have to tell you that as a whole. You could look at me and see that I'm African American. Also, on top of that, when you get to shows and stuff, it's a bit off-putting for a lot of the audience as a whole here. And it's not one of those things that let's see, we got a comment already here. Oh, hi, teaching all. Good. I like that name. Hopefully you stay around and enjoy the rest of the show here. But getting back to the question at hand, at shows, it can be very off-putting, and you want to be inviting to all. You want to be inclusive to all. If I focused in on the fact that I am African American creator, people could see that. If I focused that the books were made by an African American, people could see that already. They don't need to be hammered. I don't have to jump down their throats to make them realize that. What I prefer to do is to have them love what I do. I want them to love the stories that I create. I want them to feel a part of that creative process and love the characters just as much as I love those characters that I create. That to me is more important than to highlight my ethnicity. It serves no purpose in the promoting aspect when you're promoting your stories, your comics, your work per se. Now, will there be certain venues that I will have to talk on that level about my journey as a Black creator? Sure. But in general, I don't have to do that. I don't even do that here on this show. It serves no purpose, because why? The show is for everybody who likes comics more so than anything else here. And that's one of the reasons why when people ask me that question, I was like, well, look at the business side of things here. Why? It's like, and to be quite honest, those who ask that question is up here, it's like, well, I want to feel more a part of this industry. It's like, yeah, you are a part. Just whether you be a consumer or actual creator, you are a part of this industry in some form or some fashion. You don't have to be 100% catered to. And those that up here wanted to be catered to have to realize you make up less than 5% of the buying market at that point when you get into true ethnicity as far as who's buying what. So if I was focused, as a business person, if I was only focusing on 5% opposed to the 95% that's still out there, I'm not playing a winning game business wise. So again, why would I promote to a degree where it's not inclusive for everybody at that point? So that's question number one that was asked. The next question is, do I think that female characters are over sexualized in comics? Short answer, hell no. Long answer. And this is something that, like I said, the reason why I was giving the disclaimer, because I might end up offending some people with this here. Those who feel that the way that some women characters are dressed, portrayed in comics, does not know the history per se of storytelling or the storytelling in comics, nor do they understand the aspect of what makes something sexual. Not to say that there are images that are out there, and you have to be mindful. I was creating comics during that time of all of the the Me Too and the Hawkeye initiative and everything to that magnitude. I understood what was being said in the early 2000s, what was being said, and this is the thing that really made me stop and not answer this question back then. Because when other creators asked me that same question, I pretty much brought it to them this way. What makes something sexy? Let's take one of the things that people complain about was Carol Danvers. Carol Danvers went from like the one piece swimsuit type costume to a more uniform type, covered up uniform. and people got upset about that. And I'm up here, I'm looking at this. It's like, well, here's the problem with this. What is considered sexy? You could take a woman, you could have them in a bikini, and they're not sexy. However, you could put that same woman in a regular sweatsuit or jumpsuit that somebody could work out in, that covers them from like the neck all the way down, and they can still be sexy. Sexy is always going to be in the eye of the beholder. Those who is getting offended by the way that women characters were being dressed and portrayed were new. Well, I wouldn't say new, were not understanding the people who a lot of the comics was addressing here. And now, since they were becoming more of the buying market, or at least the so-called marketers in the marketing departments of the big three was looking at this and giving those people, those demographics, more say as far as where they were thinking about moving the goalposts as far as how certain characters are represented in books. It got to a murky place where, one thing led to another, and it just led to a splintering of, if I could say it, the fan base. Those who loved the old school stuff understood that it was not meant for the sexualization of these characters. However, the newer people were trying to come in, who may not know history or have been in the comics as long as those who have been there for like 30 plus years, they're seeing these images and saying, oh, this is a little bit too much. Why can't certain characters be covered up more so? And it's a good question to ask. And it really depends on the creative team. Now, whether something is over sexualized or not, that's in the eye of the beholder. I can't tell somebody else that a character pose is over sexualized. I can't tell another individual not to look at that because it's overly sexy. Because what is sexy to me may not be sexy to the next person to me. And that's where the real problem lies at. It's that when we start looking at the fan base as a whole, when I'm talking about the fan base of comics, topics like this splinters the overall grouping so much that there is no right or wrong when it comes to the question of over sexualization. Matter of fact, there are books that are 100% catered to the sexualization of the characters, period. And if you knew about those titles, going into them what to expect here. But during that time frame of the early 2000s, it was just one of those things that, as the demographics changed for those who were collecting comics, which going through and changing, the big three the marketing departments of the big three started to listen more to the newer people that were coming in, and they started to make changes and everything. And the older people who were already invested didn't like it. We saw changes in stories and everything, the accommodations for those changes for the costumes and everything come in. Was it for the better? Who knows? Did it make the character less sexy? Probably not. Because again, sexy is in the eye of the beholder. What did it truly do? What it truly did was splinter the overall fan base to, those who want to dealing with the older artwork as opposed to what's coming out now. And to be quite honest, even in this last 2 decades since that major outcry, you start to see things move more back towards the way that they were prior to that movement. I mean, it is what it is. You know, you can't fault anybody for that. I mean, it was kind of like one of those things where it's like, hey, we're going to try to market our books towards this group. We put it out there. It didn't stick for too long. We want to go back to what sells. That's what happens with any industry here. So on that note, let's go on to the third question here. Do you think that people in the United States will get over the stigma of comics is for kids? As of right now, I don't see that happening. And the reason I don't see that happening is mainly because of a couple of things here. One, going back to the previous question, the fact of the matter is that until comics are really seen as an art form within itself, which encompasses both, drawing and writing together, it will never be held in the same regards as a Rembrandt painting. It would never be held to the same regards to War and Peace as a novel. That's where we need comics to really fit in as, to get past the stigma that is mentioned by that comics is for kids. Comics is a art form within itself. It needs to be treated as a art form. However, for some reason in this country, at least in American comics, everybody wants to move comics in the aspect that only people who are into juvenile things only wants it. And they're not looking at it as a form of entertainment, just like how people will read Agatha Christie novels or would go to like an art museum and look at like Andy Warhol paintings. They're all one and the same class when it comes to when you look at it as far as the art form itself. It has nothing to do with the age of the content here. This is one of the reasons why you still got people who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s that still pick up a comic book and read it because they enjoy the art form of itself. It has nothing to do with it being for kids one way or the other. And because of the mindset that most people in the United States have when it comes to this art form, it's going to take a lot of fans like myself to say, no, stop saying that it's for kids. Look at all these different titles and how long it has lasted because of the simple fact that it has been entertaining for both those who started reading as a kid and for those who reach adulthood and continue on with it. They still find enjoyment with the art form. It has nothing to do with a predefined, as soon as you become 20, you have to give up comics. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with loving the art form that is contained. It is everything to do with the storytelling that is contained within the comics. It is everything to do with the artwork that is put into it. It's so much that goes into comics where it's just not just a thing to just say it's only for kids. There are college classes that delves into the art and the production of comics. It can't be just for kids. However, people in the United States just need to get over that aspect here. That stigma has to be eroded in some form, in some fashion. Does it mean that, people like myself have to constantly, say that, no, comics is not for kids on a consistent basis? Yes, maybe so. I don't know. But I do know it's going to take those who are in the community itself to start up and start saying, let's start looking at comics as an art form and not look at it as a gateway only for kids to get into reading. That's pretty much how I feel about that as a whole here. The next question is like, do you think that the emphasis on collectability of comics is hurting modern comics and the industry itself? Now, this one is a tricky one. And again, this might also get me canceled too by those who are heavily into investing and doing the whole how do they say it, making comics pay for themselves. Yes, the overemphasis of collectability is hurting modern comics as we speak today. Why? Because when you truly think about comics as a whole, when you look at its entire lifespan, in the recent 3 decades, we started getting into the aspect of manufactured rarity. When we started talking about 1 in 10s, 1 in 25s, 1 in 50s, 1 in 100s, one per store, one per store, publishers incentives, seller incentives, all of these different things to make all of these different variant covers for an issue of one comic. It does not make the issue itself rare because now you're producing multiple copies of that one issue. The rarity is coming from the over diversity of covers. And again, explain the art side of comics. So now if I really want my favorite artist cover for, let's say, an Amazing Spider-Man issue, I can have that if I'm willing to pay the markup because it was a 1 in 50. It does not change the fact that there's more copies of that one issue number out there, but the manufacturer rarity is that one cover by that one artist. Because of that, it also drives up the price for issues itself. So now you have people who cannot enter in comics at this point in time. Even with the A covers being $5 and $6 a pop now, it is not something that is feasible for the average person to get in to say, okay, I have to pay, $5-6 this month and then come back next month and pay $5-6 the next month. That $5 or $6 not nowadays, could get me a hamburger. I could either eat or buy a comic book. It used to be I could do both. Now it's like one or the other. And let alone if I was a big fan of, like, let's say, Scotty Young, and the Scotty Young cover is like a $10 book. That's if I grab it off the shelf on New Comic Book Wednesday. If I missed that New Comic Book Wednesday, guess what? I might have to pay a markup of 200, 300, 400%. Meaning that $10 book on the day that it came out is now a $40, $50 book 2 weeks down the line. Yes, it's hurting the industry as a whole here in that aspect here. But also at the same time here, the companies are really marketing to the fan base as a whole for the things that they can bank on. They could bank on those rabid fans of particular artists to always buy the covers that they like, which also means that they might not be paying a close attention to the quality of story. And then on top of that, there's no such thing as ongoing series anymore because they're constantly rebooting everything to give newer people a jumping on point instead of looking at jumping on points as beginning of story arcs like they did back in the day. So yeah, there's with comic books slowly becoming more or less like how Beanie Babies were, or how Magic the Gathering was in the very beginning, where it was overly collectible, and now it is awfully hard to get into because it costs way too much money to just get the basic stuff now. Comics is at that point with modern, with all the new modern stuff that's coming out here. We're there. It is hurting. It could get worse. However, I don't have an answer to fix it. And the reason why I say I don't have an answer to fix it, because people have the right to get whatever cover that they want. If they have their favorite artist that they follow, they're going to get whatever artist that they're going to follow. If they have a favorite writer that they follow, they're going to follow whatever that writer does from title to title to title that they do. There's no easy fix for it. Now, the only other thing that I could suggest is that, we could make a crusade about not so many variant covers to accomplish that. But even with that being said, somebody down the line, as far as the fan base is concerned, is going to be missing out because of the simple fact that Ginny Frizzin cover is not going to come out, because now we're limited to 3 covers instead of the 15 that comes out. The 3 is more feasible, but we're so used to now having 15 and 20 different variant covers that it is what it is. But that is my take on that particular question. So question number 5 in this here is, somebody really did ask me this here. Do I really hate speculation in comics? No, I don't hate speculation. I hate modern speculation. Yes. Modern speculation is one thing. Speculation as a whole is a complete different story here. And the way that I have to phrase the difference between modern speculation and speculation for comics as a whole here is this. Speculation for comics as a whole is something that I discussed before on this show, where you're looking at the likelihood of a comic book title being successful and being attention grabbing to readers of that title. That takes a lot more discernment and understanding what makes a great story, what makes great characters. Why would somebody follow this title, as opposed to what is going on with modern speculation, where it's like, oh, such and such title has so many issues and now it got picked up as an option for a movie. Now it's the time to buy into this title. And I'm up here like, well, how come nobody really talking about the title itself? Nobody's talking about the story. If the story was that great, how come there's not a whole bunch of YouTubers out there saying, hey, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread? That's the problem that I have with modern speculation. Oh, this TV series is about to come out based upon what was done in the first 15 issues of this series. We need to speculate on that. It's like, no. And I said this before. Once the TV series come out, TV watchers are not automatically going to go to the comic book to read it. TV watchers are going to watch television, and maybe a few won't, be curious enough to come over to comics. But us, that's comic book readers, are always going to watch the television series because we're a fan of the series itself, and we want to know what's going to be the major difference between what we have read as opposed to what they show on screen. Those two things are not mutually exclusive where one cross over to the other. It's more likely for us as comic book readers to cross over to watch the TV series than it is for those who watch a TV series to come back to the source material. It is what it is here. However, when it comes to true speculation, I look at, and I'm going to pick Invincible. It's like, Invincible doesn't have enough legs to really last, another 5 or 6 years. Is the fan base really growing? What are they doing? Are people truly talking about, the next the next story arc and this, that, and the other? And we all see what's going on with Invincible. It's like more and more people after watching the animated series, seeing what they've been seeing and everything. We now have Battle Beast that came out. It's more and more stuff that's coming out for that franchise as a whole that has legs. Unlike let's take in consideration of Paper Girls. Paper Girls was heavily speculated on. Television show did not do so hot. Those who love the comic book series still love it, but they did not gain any new fans. Why? Because those who like the Paper Girl comic book series didn't really talk about it to other comic book fans or other people who would read comic books. They were hoping that the TV series would get popular enough that it may spark an interest for people to go back to the source material. And like I said before, people who watch TV, they're going to stay watching TV. There's not always going to be a guarantee that they come back to the source material. Same thing with moviegoers. People who watch things on the big screen, whether it be at a movie theater or on streaming, is not guaranteed to go back to the source material, which is the actual comics itself. So the only way to truly combat that is to really talk about and get people into reading the series. To say, this is the difference between what's going on the television versus what's in the actual book. And you need to read the actual book and be excited about reading the actual book. So no, I don't hate speculation. I just hate how we doing it in this modern time more so than anything else here. That brings us to question number 6 here. And if I'm going too fast, point it out in the comments below and everything to that magnitude here. Oh, question number 6. This one, let me go ahead and take another drink of this cherry Coke here. This one I get a lot. And I never truly spoke my mind on this until now. The question is, if Elisa Masters was Caucasian, would the Amazonia title be more popular? The answer to that question is, I don't know. I suspect no. I suspect the answer is no. And people who want to look at me as like, why would you say that? Here's why. As of right now, when I look at the sales of Amazonia as a whole and the fan base of Elisa Masters, Elisa is kind of like how Diana is Wonder Woman. She was designed to be every woman. Anybody can be her. Anybody could imagine themselves like Elisa. Any woman has some of the same feelings that she would have in similar situations. Just like how a lot of people have similar experience to Peter Parker. I don't think her race in this aspect would change her popularity. Would Amazonia sell more books? I really don't know. I really don't know because, again, I'm telling a story. And I'm telling a story based upon her, the main character, Elisa, not knowing her true heritage until the second story arc, until we get into the second story arc. So her nationality and ethnicity does not really come into play. And even after she finds out, it won't change her per se. So having her being more Caucasian really wouldn't matter once she finds out the truth about her mother's side of her, her mother's side, her heritage from her mother's side, I should say. It wouldn't matter. And that's the way I look at it. Whether she was Asian, Polish, Italian, it doesn't matter at this point. Once she finds out her mother's side of the family and the heritage from there, her world changes, but it doesn't change her per se. And I always consider Elisa more like the anti-Wonder Woman. And the reason why I say she's the anti-Wonder Woman is that if you follow Wonder Woman throughout history, it's like she was the one chosen to go out to the world of man to save the world of man. Elisa is opposite of that. She was born outside of her mother's tribe. And when she finally comes in to meet them, her destiny is to save them, to restore balance and to save them. Now, that doesn't stop her from doing good for the rest of the world until that happens. But she's kind of like the opposite. Because she's not tied down to traditions and everything, she gets to see things in a better light than everybody else here. So that's something for you guys to think about that's coming down the pike here in the second story arc. And we're going to start talking about the other aspects of how it changes her in the third story arc too. But a lot of times when people ask me that question about if she was Caucasian, would the book be flying off the shelves? I really don't think so. I think people will be more accepting of the imagery, but I don't think it will affect the story per se. It doesn't matter because her mother's heritage outweighs the ethnicity of her. So that's the best way that I could address that question here. And I believe we got 4 more questions left for the show here, and we're almost at the halfway mark. So the next question here. Oh, this was the other one that I always get a good chuckle out of this because people don't believe this here. The question is, was another artist's approval really the influence on why AWF was created on the principle of different body types for women in wrestling? And the answer to that question is 100% unadulterated yes. I was not planning to do AWF or Primetime Saturday Night. It was an idea that I was floating out there, because of the simple fact that I have pitched several things to Marvel dealing with the grapplers that they had, throughout the comic book thing, volume 1, they had the grapplers and everything, the whole thing about the power broker, Sharon Ventura, the death of the first Titania. That is not the same Titania as Mary McPherson that we all know from She-Hulk and all this other good stuff. There was a group of wrestlers called the grapplers and everything. And I had plans to work a storyline with them where it would at least spawn into a video game and a couple of other ideas. Did not work. Marvel is like, hey, thanks for asking about it. No, we can't give you, we can't give you any information as far as that. It was like, we're not interested in that storyline, this, that, and the other. So I kept that idea in the back of my head. I did a couple of test drawings and everything of some of the wrestlers that would be in this particular series that I was thinking about. Since I couldn't use the grapplers, I had to create my own. And lo and behold, at Wizard World Chicago, I want to say Wizard World Chicago back in like 2001, 2002. I ended up meeting the artist who helped me with the issues 2, 3, and 4 of AWF. And she was like looking through the stuff and she was asking, it's like, oh, it's like you're at the pro wrestler. It's like, yes. It's that she really took a look at the concept art where it's like, you know what I like about this? These wrestlers actually look like possible wrestlers. They're not, the average, oh, I'm a supermodel that could pick up 500 pounds. You're actually drawing women who actually are really, that some are buff, some could do this and something like that. It's like, yes, that's the way that I was really trying to go with this here. And when I told him, it's like, and also when you look at things such as Whoa Nelly and everything, it's like the body type's different. It's like women wrestlers' body types really differ from, from generation to generation. And she really thought that was a great idea. It was a great idea in the aspect of encouraging body positivity. And I was like, okay. And then, she got more into it, and she actually convinced me. It's like, go ahead and write the script for it. And if you go ahead and write the script, I will help you, make it come to fruition. It's like, okay, it's like, I'll do this up under one condition. I'm drawing the first issue and you take over from there. She agreed, and the rest was history. So yes, that question, the answer to that question is an unequivocally, unadulterated yes. That's how AWF came about into fruition here. That's how this series right here came to be. It's all because of the simple fact that it caught another artist's attention about the different body types for all the different wrestlers in the series. So yes, that actually did happen. Question number 8. Do you find that aspects of the comic production is racist when it comes to opportunities within the creative space? This one is another one that I refuse to answer in public forums until now. The answer to this question is no, I don't. Opportunity is going to be opportunity, regardless of the fact here. Now, whether or not a person makes it into Marvel, DC, Image really depends upon the body of work that they produce before they get to Marvel, Image, and DC. You just can't be some person who gets out of college and just work at Marvel and DC unless you're at the upper echelon of your, if I could say, of your class, and you're doing something that is so eye-catching that nobody can deny your work. If you're not in that echelon, your only way to get into like a major publisher, such as a Marvel and DC, is to build a body of work. And usually building your body of work, which usually would indicate that you have to put your own money into making your own books, making your own stories, and promoting them, and being successful at promoting them, selling a whole bunch of materials to catch their attention. Eventually, when you start doing stuff what I'm doing here, you're going to eventually write for pro-am type stuff for pro bono, or you're going to get, in some cases, I got paid for writing a couple of scripts for other franchises. I don't really talk much about them because they're not what I own. But when it comes down to when they start promoting for those things, yes, I would say, yes, I did X, Y, and Z. You don't have a problem talking about it. But to say that it's racist, no, that wouldn't be racist, to be quite honest here. Now, is there favoritism? Yes, there's certain favoritism and everything to that magnitude. I mean, certain creative teams love working together and don't want to work with other people and yada, yada, yada. Everybody got their own personal beefs and everything. But when it comes to the unadulterated, pure comic production aspect, no, there's no race. No, there's no racism in it whatsoever. None whatsoever. It comes back down to the body of work, the type of art style that you do, or the type of writing style that you have, and whether or not you have the body of work to be on the upper echelon, to work on a Marvel or DC book or Image book. If not, then you might be good enough to work for like an Antarctic Press book or some of the other smaller companies. Or you could be as bold as what I'm doing here is start your own company and produce your own books. The creative space is wide open for everybody. I don't see the actual production space and creative space being racist. Not by one bit. So The unequivocal answer for that is no. The creative space is not. The creative space is not really that much. Are there people in it that are that way? Probably so, but the space itself, no. Question number 9, and we're almost done here. Is there gatekeeping in comic creation? If so, why does it exist? And I kind of touched upon this with the last question. Is there truly gatekeeping? I would say that the answer is yes. Sadly to say. Sadly to say, yes. There is, I won't say gatekeeping, but it's a cliquish behavior amongst certain creators. There's no denying that. There is some cliquish behavior. And that's okay too. As far as I'm concerned, that's kind of sort of okay, because again, certain creative teams and certain minds will always think alike, and they will have the same shared experiences and this, that, and the other. But when you really talk about gatekeeping, it gets into that quirkiness about why would they keep other people from a job that they might want, or try to keep them from a job that they currently hold. This industry is very competitive. Once you're in does not necessarily mean that you stay in at that position at any given time here. So one moment you might be, the guy to write Batman, and 2 weeks later you're gone. People just don't like what you were doing with it. There could be enough complaints or anything, or you've been missing deadlines and everything. Once you're in, you're in. But you could be easily replaced. And that's kind of like one of the things that I say about the cliquishness, because when you start getting good creative teams together, when they move on to that next title or that next storyline for a different set of characters, if they have the opportunity to stick together, they will. That's the reason why I say it's not really a bad thing, but the gatekeeping aspect is when somebody new and somebody that would be considered almost a rival or a competitor comes in. That's where you see more of the gatekeeping aspect of it. And if they definitely have a different philosophy, it really rears its ugly head here. Why does it exist? Because again, it's the nature of business. It's like, you always have to try to stay on top one way or the other. And certain titles and certain characters, and some people just can't write very well. Other people can't draw very well. But then there's others that it's right up their alley. That's what they were born and bred to do. But yet, such as egos, sometimes not having that wherewithal to say, hey, I might not be the best Wonder Woman artist. I need to let somebody else who are better to do it. Despite all my accolades and awards that I have won, I still need to come to that realization. I might need somebody else to either do it or to help me. But it happens. It just does. It's not something that you could really fight against or rail against all the time here. It's kind of like how I was treating like the Comics Gate and everybody else. And I always say it's like that whole argument is really one coin with two sides. Comicsgate being on one side saying that we need all the older stuff and this, that, and the other, and yada, yada, yada to maintain what was done in the past. And then we have the newer group coming in saying, no, we need to change all of this other stuff to be more inclusive and this, that, and the other. But people kept forgetting that the overall coin itself is comics. Sometimes when you flip it, It may land where the new stuff is needed to get the book off the ground and people interested and get people in the filling up the seats to try to keep the book going. And then you flip it again and you have to go back to the older ways of dealing with that to maintain what was already established. There's not just one way to look at it here. But when you splinter the creative flow of things and those who are in creative into smaller cliques and factions, that stuff happens. A lot of times it comes down to egos. A lot of times it comes down to just difference of opinion. But the bottom line here is you have to maintain that coin, which is comics. Doesn't matter which side you're on, it's still comics. You have to maintain the overall quality and presentation of it, period. So it doesn't matter what side you're on. As long as the work is getting done, do the work. Everything will work itself out here. So that's the best I could put it to people on that aspect here. Yes, it's still there. I don't know how much longer it can exist that way. But people like me have to take that mindset of it shouldn't matter. Let's do what we can to put the best book out there, period. That's just the end of the story. Doesn't matter about your philosophy and everything as long as you're putting your best foot forward. And the last question for tonight here. How come we do not see more minorities in the comic book industry? This one right here actually kind of ticks me off here more so than anything else. And the reason why it ticks me off more so than anything else here is because when I get asked this question and I look at what I went through, the history that I have to go through to know that of all of the other ones that's been through the door before me, the first thing that I could say to that person is, you're not looking for us. There are well-known artists and writers in the comic creator space that is of a minority, but yet you don't know about it because you don't investigate. You only concern yourself about the product and the product only. If you take a moment to look up who some of these writers, artists, inkers, and everything to that magnitude, you would go through the history and you find a plethora. And I do use the word plethora in this one, of minorities who have been hired and have worked for the big three and smaller companies and have produced great work all the way back from like the 1960s and 50s and 60s to now. Just because your eyes have not been open to seeing them at a convention, and to be quite honest, conventions are not always conducive for even the people that we consider star artists and everything in the industry. You may not see them at these shows and everything, but they are there. They have been working. They have been producing artwork, have been writing great stories. But the thing about it is that until you start doing your homework and going beyond just the few pages that you see in the books, just to be like, oh, I enjoyed the story, but sometimes you have to do the extra work and start following the artist to find out what they're about, to see what they're about, to understand why they do what they do. So when I have people who tell me, how come we don't see them? It's like, because you don't look for them. We've been here. We may not be the most vocal, but we've been here. We don't always, come out and say, do this, buy this, buy that, and minus this, that, and the other. But we've been here. The work speaks for itself. We don't have to be braggadocious and go forth from there. It's not how things are of what it's not how things look to us as creators, as opposed to what you see at a show. What you see at a show is something that is polished and not necessarily everybody that I would say pay, but participate in the making of the product. Not everybody gets a table in Artist Alley. And trust me, not everybody gets a booth in these shows anyway, even if they have their own books and have their own separate company. Not everybody gets that opportunity. It would take you, the reader, to do a little bit more effort to seek us out. Not to say that we're not putting ourselves out there for you, but you still have to seek us out because we're there. All of us are not going to be like, hey, look at me. But we are out there. We have done some great work in this industry. But like I said, it's like we get overshadowed by, oh, look at what this movie looks like, or look at this image and this, that, and the other. Sometimes the actual creators don't get their just dues until it's too late. That's just the nature of the beast here. So when you ask me how come we don't see them, it's because you're not looking for us. Because when you start looking for us, we make ourselves available to you. Now, I know for some of you out there, it's like, yeah, some creators make themselves too available. You get into arguments with them, and you have the love-hate relationships with certain ones as far as philosophy and stuff to that magnitude is concerned. But we're out here, and it's not just the minority ones. I talk about all creators. We're out here. We're easy to contact. We're pretty much easy to talk to in most cases. Some of us could be curmudgeons at times. Some of us could be a little bit standoffish, but we do make ourselves available for the most part for those who are truly earnest about what we do and how we do and want to get to, to ask us, questions about the work that we do. We do take that time as a whole to do so. So when I see questions like that one, the first thing here is, are you paying attention to who they are, their names? Have you contacted them on social media? Have you tried to reach out to them outside of seeing them at trying to see them at a show and whatnot? Because we're there. We're out there. We're easy to find. We have to promote our works and wares anyway on social media in some form or some fashion. It's just going to take, it'll probably just take us a little bit more time to kind of reach back out to you if we see that you're earnest, more so than anything else. So on that note, that brings us to these 10 questions here. Now, I do have a question for you guys here. If you like this type of thing here, there's more questions that I could bring up from shows that people have asked me and that I just kind of like refuse to answer in a general public format that I wouldn't mind bringing back to this show here from the Desk of a Small Press Publisher to answer for you guys directly on the channel. And if you like that, let me know in the comments here. I got at least another 10 or to 30 more that are like the ones that we talked about today here. Some of the ones that really hurt me more so to the soul was like the Elisa Masters question here, because I honestly felt that when I created Elisa, I felt like I had to pay more attention to, pay more respects to Brazilian history and more or less like the whole Incan culture. More so, I had to be very, very sensitive and be very, very thorough and not representing that culture incorrectly. So when questions like that comes up, it kind of hurts me, but at the same time, I'm glad it's coming up because people need to know that she is supposed to be an every woman. It does not matter. Her ethnicity does not matter. You will be able to relate to her in some form, in some fashion. I'm not writing her to be African American. She is somebody of a mixed heritage, and part of that heritage she does not know. She will get to know it, and it does change her for the better eventually. And then we got other questions like the last one, which really just, that one would make me angry because it's like, I've been here for over 20 years now in this creator space. And for people to ask me a question like that, it just tells you like you're not paying attention. How can I take you seriously if you're not paying attention? But those are the types of things that we need to start talking more about in 2026 here to get the fan base back to where it needs to be. And the reason why I say it needs to be because one of the things that everybody wants to go back to is like, oh, the 90s was like the greatest thing, greatest era since sliced bread when it comes to comics. And I was like, you don't remember how much it was of a Wild West back in the 90s and how much bad, crappy comic books came out in the 90s. But the one thing that I could say is that the resources to get to know the people behind the books was much available to people because of things like Wizard Magazine and Comic Shop News and all these smaller publications, which we do not have nowadays because why? We have the internet. And because we have the internet, you got dummies like me doing podcasts like this, and you got other people on Twitter and TikTok and doing all this different stuff to try to get to know their audience a little bit better. But at the same time, there's no real focal point that is truly focusing on the stories, the titles, what is truly coming out, and everything like it used to be. Do I miss that aspect of it? Yes. The one thing I don't miss was if I could say it, I hated the Wizard price guide. That was the one thing out of Wizard Magazine that I truly felt hurt the industry more so than anything else. And I get it. Wizard Magazine came out more often than Overstreet. And because of that, people was using that more so than the Overstreet price guide. And it makes sense because, again, Wizard took speculation, and usually it's speculation that they created and tried to mimic where they believe Overstreet would have gone on a lot of the books that came out in the 90s and where prices was going for a lot of the books. Was the Wizard price guide comprehensive? No. They had so many titles, and they would then say, if it's not there, consult Overstreet. But most of the newer stuff they covered very, very, very well. But outside of that, we need more people to talk about what they like more so than what they hate. We need people to start talking about the DCKO series. We need people to start talking more about Absolute Batman. We need people to talk about more about Absolute Wonder Woman. We need people to start talking about the books that we're reading, and not all the hate and the dislike and everything. Yeah, I say this several times. I don't like Tom King's Wonder Woman, but I still read it. If somebody was up here, it's like, hey, could you go ahead and give me your opinion about issue number 9? It's like, I could go right over here, pull issue number 9. We go through it right here, right now. But at the same time, I'm not going to come out here and be like, oh, this is what's wrong. This is what needs to be changed either. Why? Because I know a lot of people who love this run of Wonder Woman by him. I'm not going to ruin Wonder Woman for them. The one thing that I've constantly been saying about Tom King's Wonder Woman that has always been a positive in my book is that fans of his finally came to the table and discovered the character. My fear is once he leaves Wonder Woman, they leave because of the simple fact that they don't know Wonder Woman lore from what was done in the past. Tom King had keys to the kingdom to change so much stuff that the character is not essentially the same. But only time will find out as far as that is concerned. Am I pissed off that he's still on it? Yeah. But like I said, there's more people sitting down at the table reading his version of Wonder Woman, which makes me happy because now I have more Wonder Woman fans to talk to. Now, I might not like what the type of stories that he's telling, but I can appreciate the fact that he brought more people to loving Wonder Woman. As a fan, I can't fault that. I can't fault that as a fan. We all have our favorite stories and the stories that we don't like. That's going to always happen here. So I can't always knock the creator. I could knock the company for poor decisions, but not really the creative teams per se until something worse comes along. But for right now, I'm happy. The reason I'm happy because I got Absolute Wonder Woman, which is to me has been knocking it out of the box for me. It gives me my old Wonder Woman feels back. But it is what it is here. So on that note, I'm going to bring this episode to a close unless you guys got comments here. I know that there's people out there that's watching. I see all the numbers with the eyeballs going up and down and around in a circle and everything to that magnitude. It's like this is pretty much been one of the kind of like most watched episodes at different times here. I mean, we was as high as 20 something people and now we're down to like a handful now, but people were watching in and I'm very appreciative of that here. So like I always said, From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher is always a show where you can have 100% unadulterated access to me and my opinions and everything to that magnitude, and you can always comment here. So it's pretty much one of those things here. But I guess because of the types of questions that was being asked, I guess people just wanted to listen here. So that's perfectly fine too. So on that note, I'm going to bid you guys adieu for another Saturday here. My friends on the East Coast, I'm giving you back part of your Saturday here. So at least now you won't be in the future when we end here. You have to believe that you got about 37 more minutes before you're into the future. And for the rest of us in the rest of the United States, enjoy the rest of your Saturday here. I have been Joe D. McPhee here. Live life, grow, and be well. And we're out of here. Like I said before, make sure that you like, subscribe, hit the notification because there's a lot more stuff to come here. We're going to be talking more about my PC for the updates, for our updates from week to week to week to week now. And we're just going to be going full bore until we get everything together for C2E2 and some of the other background stuff dealing with owning a corporation. So until next week, bye and enjoy your Saturday.